So I was just thinking about this one time we were visiting. This is like 2016 or 17, I think. We were visiting somebody. I'm gonna assume it's my grandma in the hospital. Just because everyone was in high spirits, and if it's the time I'm thinking of, um, she had an allergic reaction to something and ended up being admitted. So everything was all good, but me and my brother had rode down there to like basically visit and make sure she really was good and in good spirits and meet up with my mom. And when we were leaving and going down the elevator, we get to the bottom and my mom and brother step off and they're just talking and all that good stuff. Me, on the other hand, it was as if someone opened the door. Like, if you can, it was so cartoonish and so like somehow overly dramatic. But I went to go step out the elevator and it was just like I cartoon just like fell out of it. And those two were kind of looking at each other just talking so they can see me like case it at the, corner of their eyes, and they turn around. My mom, being my mom, she's laughing hard. But she's at least coming towards me to, like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, are you okay? And I'm cracking up, obviously, because what did happen? And my brother is over there just pointing and laughing and just classic, having a good old time at my expense. Um, but it was funny, It's just I don't understand how that happened. It was just such a random fall. What I didn't know, and what none of us suspected, was that was part of something bigger. That was the start of something else. Miyoshis is such a, a weird disorder. It's very slow progressing, and it's so easy to attribute the symptoms to literally anything else, especially if they happen to line up like they did for me. Um, yeah, so I mean, just with that said, again, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Venice, also known as Lady Valor in the gaming community. And today I just wanted to go over specifically um, Miyoshis Myopathy, and how we finally figured out that is what I had. And maybe it will help someone else um, who may be going through some of the same things and just wondering, like, what is going on. And it will cut the time in half if I can. If I can help somebody figure it out a lot sooner than I did, I would be grateful. So what is Miyoshis exactly? So it's a genetic disorder. It's an incredibly rare genetic disorder. The chances of someone having it is incredibly slim, and it's a distal myopathy, which means it's something that affects the muscles from furthest from the core. So essentially from the waist down, and it's not like it affects all the muscles. It's just random ones. And what it does is, okay, well, let's start here. If you know how the muscle works, and you are trying to build muscle and you go work out, what you're doing is working out to the point where you basically rip the muscle, and the muscle then fills in that gap, to repair itself. But what it's doing is that repair part is what makes your muscle grow, and it makes it stronger. So that's what you're aiming for. With Miyoshis, it's like I'm not doing anything, but at some point, my muscle ripped, right? But it no longer produces the protein, the specific protein needed in various muscles that I have that are affected to bind that back together to fix it. So instead, it's in a constant state of degeneration. Just that's what it does. So you just get weaker and weaker over time to the point where you just basically you just have nothing left. Um, and that's just what it is. And like I said, it's an incredibly rare muscle disorder, and it's so rare that I mean there's no treatment, no real treatment. There's no cure. The only treatment is to try to manage and preserve what you have left already. You know what I mean? And so, like I said, it's a incredibly slow progressing um, muscle disorder, dystrophy. But of course, there are ways, like I said, if you just know how the body works, that you can accelerate that. In which I'm pretty sure I did, because once I started really experiencing symptoms, it was because I was overcompensating for something, and I didn't know what I was doing to myself. So let me back up a little bit so you can understand that. So I told the story in the beginning that the reason why that I was even thinking about that time I randomly fell out the elevator was because every now and then I do just sit here and think, when did this all start for me? Like, could I have caught it sooner for myself? And it just so happened that this one particular moment that I do remember, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've fallen randomly plenty of times beforehand. But this particular time, what I also remember is when me and my brother were going to the hospital, I was overthinking a lot, like how far it might be to get from the car to the hospital to my grandmother's room, assuming that's who we were visiting. I was overly thinking that and trying to mentally prepare myself for that. And that's something that became so much more common for me as time progressed past that point. In more recent days, especially, because I'm trying to gauge if I'm going to be super tired, or if I even like, is it worth it for me to do this activity? Because I know I'm going to be expending it, I'm just going to feel weird after, that type of thing. And I don't do that. I didn't do that, that overthinking and kind of planning my moves like several steps ahead of time, um, until I started feeling some type of way. And I mean, it could have been before then. So, like I said, this was probably, excuse me, 2017, 18, maybe 16. It could have been before that. There could be another time before that, where I started actually experiencing some of the symptoms of myopathy. Um, but I do know at some point, um, uh, as I was going to work, it was starting to get harder and harder for me to even, like, if we parked just like right in front, we managed to park in front, it was getting harder for me to step up onto the curb itself without like placing my hand on my knee or putting my hand on my car and kind of like giving myself that extra oomph to get up. And I would start, me just like stepping off the curb, it would be like almost a whole production. I'm like, there's a 50% chance that I'm going to, as soon as I step, I'm just going to fold. It's happened a few times. uh, not a lot at all. Just it's happened a few times um, in my house, my childhood home, and that's one reason why I had to move out of my childhood home, because there's even just, it's a curb size step basically, um, to get up to the front door of that house and to get down into the living room. And that just became harder and harder. And on top of that, I had stairs, and my room was upstairs. And it just, that was another thing. It was getting it was getting hard for me to get upstairs to my room. Like that was a chore in itself, and that I would sometimes go days um, doing as little as possible to not have to go. Like I'll just figure out a way to not have to go downstairs, basically. So I just stay up in my room and do something. Um, I'm gonna call that my depression era, and I didn't even know that I was having it. It was more uh, me just trying to not overexert myself, and I was trying to hide it because I was living with my grandma from her. Like I didn't want to see her to see me struggling and start asking questions. Um, because also in my mind, well, if you think about it, how muscles work, if you're doing the same things that you do every day, the normal things that you do every day, it should not get harder for you to do if you're doing these things every day. I had to go up the stairs to my room, up and down all the time, every day. That was a normal thing for me. I had to step up onto a curb every day. So those things should not have gotten harder. And that's that should have been a sign that something might have been going on with me. But around that time, um, I had started seeing someone, and if you know me, I am not like I'm not a big drinker. I'm a social drinker for one, but like if we're out like at a party, like I can put it down. I can put some drinks down. But it's only in a social setting, so I don't really drink that much. But the guy that I was seeing at the time, that was kind of, that was how he unwinds sometimes. He'll go out and have a beer and just sit and talk. So I was putting down beers a little bit more than I would normally. Um, and on top of that, because if it was getting harder for me to do certain things, or just the idea of walking from my house to the dumpster to take the trash out, it was mentally exhausting. Because, it just, I knew my legs were going to give out or something. I had put on, okay, I was going to say I put on a little weight. I put on a lot. I put on a good few pounds. I put on some poundage. So I attributed it, like everything, to it was getting harder for me to do stuff because I was getting a little chubby, and um, a little bit more unhealthy. So what I was doing was trying to, I changed the way I ate. I basically started, oh, that's what definitely started. I started trying to exercise more, especially in my legs, not knowing that that was a bad idea, a very bad idea. And yeah, I was just trying to like take it seriously and get in shape. I lost a few poundage, and things weren't changing. In fact, when I would finish an exercise, like, yeah, I'll feel good for those few minutes, but the recovery time just got longer and longer. And after a while, I just started feel like I just felt like things were getting worse, and they were. Um, and it wasn't until I think it was towards the end, so we'll say about August, September of 2019. Um, my mood and all that had changed, and I wasn't doing too much about it. I was just still trying to write it out. Me and the guy I was seeing were kind of like off and on anyway at this point. So I was just in a mood, and I guess wasn't myself as much as I should be. And part of that was from the just me doing everything I could to try and, become more healthy so I could fix the myopathy, or no, sorry, fix the problem I was having with getting upstairs and stuff, trying to get healthy and do all that. But the other part of it was because I had been off I have a thyroid hypothyroidism. I've been off my medication for a while, um, and I happen to be anemic. Both of those make you kind of fatigue and just a little beside yourself, just different. So my mom took my insurance card and figured out a PCP and all that for me. And in that time when we went to go see the PCP, so I can get back on my meds, we were also going to do physical therapy. Um, because another reason why I thought that it was not that big a deal is when I was in about, I think it was sixth grade, um, playing basketball, I had dislocated my left knee. It was wild. And, um, sorry, I dislocated my knee and I did it multiple times, uh, at least two or three times. There was another time that it happened, but it was definitely not as severe as the first two. It just it popped out, but uh, in my rolling around because it hurt, I popped it back in myself. So that was that. So we just attribute, and I didn't go to or physical therapy or do anything for that at that time. They did say that I basically tore all the ligaments in there, so that was a thing, and that I would most likely get arthritis when I get older. And so we just figured, it's probably my knee. That's why also, like, things are getting harder because my knee is, I'm starting to show signs of wear and tear from what I did a long time ago and basically not doing anything about it. So we were going to go to a physical therapist as well so that he can help me manage that and strengthen just that leg up. And when I went to the physical therapist, we didn't even start the appointment at all yet. What we did is he came and introduced himself and said, "Okay, walk with me. Let's go to my office." And that's when us just walking and talking, he was like, "Yeah, I can tell you right now, this is not anything to do with your knee. The way you walk is not normal. It seems like well, it's normal for you now, because you are definitely overcompensating for something. And I think we need to have this checked because this is not because of your knee. Like there's visibly something going on with you." And I wouldn't have thought that at all. So I do think that physical therapist, he's the only one, because I've seen the primary care doctor I think two or three times before that, and a different doctor, I can't think of who it was, but they seen me too, and it was for my knee problem, what I thought was a knee problem, and they didn't say anything either. It was my physical therapist that was like, "No, this is something else." And that is what started me on the journey to try and figure out what was wrong with me. So one of the first places that he sent me was to see, I think it wasn't the neurologist. It was specifically a muscle doctor. Um, it was a specific place, and what they did was they hooked me up to, um, oh no, that didn't even happen yet. He sent word to my PCP, and me and my PCP, that's what happened. So yeah, the PCP had got the note from my physical therapist that something else is wrong with me. We need to figure it out. So he or she sent me for an MRI, which I went to go get, and they didn't see anything unusual except for in my liver. So they're like, "Okay, maybe it has something to do with that." There's there's just something wrong there. So then I went to a specialist for that, and they were looking. It's like, well, there's some weird lesions in there, but I don't think it's something to really worry about right now. Um, but that doesn't have. I don't think this is what's affecting your muscle fatigue, um, or what you're having right now. So then they sent me to. Uh, that's when they sent me to these other doctors to have a specific test done, and what they did was they hooked me up with these pads, and these pads will send like shocks of like little electric jolts to your muscles, and they would measure like if they reacted and all that good stuff. And they did that in my upper body and then also my lower body. Both of them were reacting. So they were pretty confident that it was not neurological, so I didn't have, they ruled out that, I didn't have MS or something like that. But they didn't know what it was, or what to do from there. So they still did send me to a neurologist, in which I had to see the neurologist like a few times, and we weren't really getting anywhere. Mind you, I had been going, this, like I said, started in 2019, around August, September, when my mom went ahead and had got things started for me because I wasn't doing it. And I wasn't going to be honest, because I was just in that state of mind. And I had been going, I had a doctor's appointment or two, and basically every week for an entire year. And I went to so many different doctors and ran through so many different tests. The ones where they did the electric shock thing, they also did what they said it measured, or so they can listen to my muscles. So they stabbed me with something in my calf muscle, and basically determined that there was something they can hear something not working right there. So that's when they sent me to the neurologist, and we went back and forth with that. For some reason, I had to go to a nutritionist at some point. I had to get another MRI. This one more in depth, I guess. And eventually, I got sent to a different, I forget what his profession exactly is called, but whatever it is. Oh, a geneticist. There you go. I got sent to a geneticist, and I told him my symptoms and what I've been through for the past year and everything we've done. And he watched me walk. He examined my legs and my hips and all that. And then he looked at my chart to see what all the results and stuff were. And that's when he was like, I think I know what this is. But to be sure, I want to run a very simple test. We could do it the easy way or the hard way. Both would work. One would be a little bit more definitive, but I think we should go the easy way first. And that would be just to get a DNA sample from both your mom and dad. And what we're looking for is a very specific gene, and seeing if there is a mutation in it, and if you have that mutation. I did. It took about 2 weeks for me to get my results back, and that's when he was like, "Yeah, it's confirmed. Now we can do a biopsy and see what to get like it double confirmed, but what you have is Miyoshis Myopathy, and there's no cure. There is no treatment. Here's a handicap sticker. Good luck." I'm not even kidding. That's how that went. Um, in which I understand because I mean, what could we do at that point? And that pretty much ended that whole journey. Another test that they actually had me do that let me go through the tests that if they had just looked at this test and did this and that, we could have it wouldn't have taken a year for me to get diagnosed, right? So when they did my full test scan, they didn't see anything wrong. One of the specialists I went to was like, just for the heck of it, it's probably gonna come back negative like per usual, but I'm gonna do the CK. I think it's called CK. Yeah, it's the CK test, and he ordered that. It's a blood test, and it came out really really high. So let's just say just the numbers. I'm just gonna say it's supposed to be between 2 and 10, and those numbers are good. Mine was 3,000. It was well off the charts. That test alone tells you that your muscle is breaking down. And that's something that you would actually, if I was a bodybuilder and I had just worked out, and I told you I'd worked out like the day before, that's what you would expect to see actually. I wasn't doing anything. This was just how, this is just what was happening. So from there, they, you, we would want them to, I would say, go the biopsy route just so that they can have it in the system, and maybe somebody else more creative than the doctor that finally diagnosed me um, could look at it and be like, well, let's try this, look at this, or something a little bit more than good luck. Um, but yeah, that is how I figured out that I had Miyoshis. It was a very long journey. It was more painful than it needed to be. Um, and I have been just trying to figure it out ever since, living with it. I've been doing my own research. Um, so I know that me trying to lose weight and lifting weights, especially in my legs, I should have skipped leg day, or at least not gone as hard, not try to strength train, but more endurance, because me trying to strength train only breaks it down that much faster, right? And another reason, other than me exercising and stuff, that made it progress a little bit more faster than it needed to. I broke my toes in Christmas Eve 2020. That's a whole nother story, but that is something that happened. And if you know how your body works, that's like the most important. Like, I have a break. So my body is naturally going to focus on trying to repair and heal that. Put my toes back together. That's what it wants to do. Not try and preserve and fix this degenerating muscle type of deal. Like, it's fine. It's working. It's gonna try and repair my toes. So, um, yeah, that is the. I know it's kind of a little bit all over the place. I tried not to be, and I tried not to make this too long. It ended up being longer than I wanted it to be, but stuff happens. But yeah, that is Miyoshis. That was my journey to figure out how I did have Miyoshis myopathy. And I just hope hearing that a little bit helps someone else in the future who may be experiencing what I was to a point, figure it out faster. You know, except the signs are, it's getting harder. The main sign, it's getting harder for you to do everyday things. That's probably the main sign that something is wrong. Don't just attribute it to something else. Maybe take the step and get it checked. You never know. To me, I think maybe that's why it's so rare. It just people don't know to check for it, you know? And it also makes me think like when you get if you have this disorder and you're older, like you see some 70, 80-year olds who are like in canes and walkers and can barely move, while you have others who are skydiving and running marathons and stuff. It's like, well, maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's not just their body getting old. Maybe there was something else. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me for now. I really don't think any of the other videos are gonna be this long. But I do appreciate you if you took the time and hung out with me for a little bit, listened to my story, and I hope you learned a little bit about Miyoshis and what I've gone through. And yeah, that's it. Okay, I love you guys. Bye.